The Dallas Cowboys select Tyler Booker at number 12. We'll break down that confusing selection next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, the Dallas Cowboys at pick number 12 selected Alabama offensive guard Tyler Booker. Was not a great top 10 for them. They had guys like McMillan go to the Panthers at 8. We had Michael Williams, who we think was a Cowboys target, go to the 49ers at 11. So the Cowboys, despite some efforts to trade back, stuck at pick 12, selected Tyler Booker. Your thoughts?
I think I am a fan of the player. And I think we've talked about this as a potential pick. And I think my feeling still remains is I don't love the process. I don't know that they had a lot of choice on the process. We can talk about that in a bit, but I absolutely love the player. I think the fact that the Cowboys got Booker and have added him to the offensive line room is going to add, pay huge dividends for this offense, for the mentality of this locker room, for the mentality of that offensive line room that lost Zach Martin, just this last year. I think in that sense, I'm super excited about the pick. So, I think we knew it was going to be a rough year at that pick if things didn't fall right. And unfortunately for us, they didn't. So I think they picked a player that, there was probably had similar grades on a couple of different guys. And I totally understand why this is the one they chose.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the other players that were available before we get to Booker. It
Yeah.
was the top guys available. If you looked at like the consensus board or just the top available were Jalen Walker, who we talked about on Thursday's show, where I like Jalen Walker a lot, but I could understand why Dallas might not like Jalen Walker because he's undersized. Mm-hmm. Tyler Warren, a tight end. We both like Tyler Warren a lot. That's probably one of the picks that we would have made. And then it's down to the Gray Zabel type. Who else? I'm trying to think of some of the other names that were there. If you wanted to get Omarion Hampton, Matthew Golden was available. And I think that's the one thing that was the most interesting is that we heard Matthew Golden's name to the Cowboys for, it felt like months, Landon. He was there at number 12. Didn't seem like they had a lot of interest there.
No, it didn't. And it felt like, they feel like they can still get a wide receiver in the second round. The way the rest of the board has fallen, it hasn't been terrible. So Golden is gone, Buka is gone, but I think that there's still a couple guys with striking distance that maybe if the Cowboys want to trade up and get one, they certainly could. I just think that once Tetro McMillan went to the Panthers at 8, it really just changed the whole tenor of how things were going to look for the Cowboys at 12. And I think that at that point they pivoted to their plan B, which was trade back. And I think when they didn't get the offer that they wanted trade back, they picked the best player on their board.
So let's talk about Tyler Booker's fit with the Cowboys because he is a career left side player at Alabama. Almost all of his starts, all of his snaps came at left guard. I would assume he's going to be making the transition over to right guard. How do you think his game fits over on the right side?
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's going to be a problem going from left to right, especially for this guy. He's, a technician. He's, really smart player, got a high football IQ. It's kind of relearning, obviously, some technique, and it is a mirroring thing. But I do think that there shouldn't be any limits. I think it's actually easier to go left and right and inside than it is outside, just because the footwork is a little bit more forgiving, I guess is probably the best way. Your hand technique needs to be a lot, more precise inside, but I don't think that much changes going from left to right. So I think he's going to be a great fit at right guard. And honestly, we'll see. I think, there is a potential that this opens it up for a larger conversation about the best 5 out there.
Well, I saw a tweet from David Moore today, from the Dallas Morning News. He said Cowboys are not planning on moving guys around. Like, they like the idea of Tyler Smith at left guard, Cooper Beebe at center, and then Tyler Booker at right guard, and just having the league's biggest interior offensive line. Um, I understand the philosophy, but man, and we talked about this earlier this week. You have some quality backups now with Brock Hoffman, TJ Bass, Robert Jones, and Shadik Charles. But tackle is still a major question.
Yeah, I mean, I think, they probably know more than we do about where Guyton is and his kind of development. I think I'm interested to find out exactly how they feel about Richardson, and some of that. So I do feel like the Cowboys do have a lot of interior offensive line players at this point. I mean, this was something that kind of threw us off the scent, and maybe, who knows, maybe it was a smokescreen getting all these guys, but like it felt like they signed a lot of interior offensive line guys. So I do think that at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if, maybe they ended up trading one of their backup offensive line guys, interior guys specifically, either for draft capital or something else, just because, I mean, they have more than they could probably roster at this point.
I mean, it's never a bad thing to have offensive line depth, just to be clear. It's just,
they've got too many, right? Like
that's the thing, is it's almost too many. And it almost reminds me of a basketball team where you have almost too many guys, because I feel like Hoffman was somebody who felt like it was ready for his time to start. And now he's going back to being a backup. And again, I think he's one of the best interior backups in the league. We'll see. I'm curious to see how it works. So one of the things that we talked about is Brian Schottenheimer, we thought was going to have a big impact in this draft because he was searching for high character and high football character players. And this was something that was reported by Mike Fisher on, I think it was Wednesday afternoon. It sure seems like that played into part of this conversation. Like, he wants guys that love football, and that's one of the reasons why they decided to go here at pick 12.
Yeah, I mean, Booker's got S tier, football intelligence. He loves football. He's a leader. Like, all of that aspect completely lines up with what they've been talking about this whole time. They want folks who love football, and that's going to be infectious in the locker room. I mean, this is a guy when, the Alabama season was on the brink. Like, he was the one who stepped up and led that team, out of the dark and kind of finishing strong in that season, especially in regards to where they were, going before that. So, this is a guy that many, many folks have discussed as being a true leader in that Alabama locker room. I think, even I've seen interviews with Jahad Candles. I see Will Anderson come out and had a conversation talking about what kind of guy Tyler Booker is. So I think the thing about, like, upgrading a guy like Hoffman or someone into that spot is that, I think Tyler Smith is a good guy, but he's kind of laid back. I think Cooper Beebe's a good guy, and he's going to really get along well with that offensive line coach for sure. I think Booker is the kind of guy that really is like a true leader in that locker room, who could really be a guy that people align behind, even if he's the youngest guy, just because he has that kind of personality and infectious leadership person. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the clips of him talking in the interview with I think it was the Bleacher Report interview with Micah Parsons, and Micah was just completely freaking out about how excited he was just listening to this guy talk. So,
real quick, I've got a question about just him as a player before we move on.
Yeah.
Among interior offensive linemen since 1999, third percentile 10-yard split, 196. 29th percentile 40-yard dash. 40-yard dash doesn't matter all that much for offensive linemen. The 10-yard split does. 13th percentile broad jump. 28th percentile 3-cone. 30th percentile 20-yard shuttle. Let's just be honest and be clear. This is a bad athlete. Now, he's very strong, and that
he tested as a bad athlete. I think that's very different.
Well,
I think too often we come in here and say things like that when they test bad at a combine one single day.
Well, I know, but what I want to say is, like, if you look at all the Pro Bowl offensive linemen, almost every single one of them has hit the 4.40 20-yard shuttle. Like, that is the biggest indicator for potential Pro Bowl success. He's a 4.84. We have not had somebody drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft in the last 10 years on the offensive line with that poor of a time. So I'm wondering, do you think in the NFL it could be an issue for him?
Look, I mean, I'm looking in the chat right now, and Freddie Mac saying, "Look at the tape, McCool. He doesn't get upfield." I beg you to look at the tape. Does he have any problem getting out on the hoof and getting into the alley and targeting second level defenders in the alley? Or is there anything on his tape that makes you feel like this guy can't do what he's going to be asked to do at a very high level? I don't see it anywhere. I mean, that's the thing is this is not a situation where, this guy is he went to even like Colorado or some of these places where they play middling defenses. He did what he did in the SEC for 3 years. He was a freshman All-American at 18 years old in the SEC. Like this guy has kind of proven what he can do. And I understand that the athletic testing is what the athletic testing is, but that to me only informs me that I need to go back and watch the tape. I did go back and watch the tape. He looked good. And even on that same day when he didn't test well, he performed well in those drills. He looked good on the hoof doing all those offensive line drills. So yeah, I encourage everyone to go back and watch the tape because I don't see a guy that has a real problem with this as athleticism. I see a smooth mover for 320 pounds, not going to win any foot races, but he certainly is going to be able to do what you need him to do at the next level.
All right, let's talk about the overall philosophy of taking an offensive guard at pick number 12. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That is where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Here's how it works. You post your job, and LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile to double your reach to qualified candidates. It's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Lena, let's talk about the general philosophy of taking a guard in round 1. And this is kind of where my issues are. So
yeah,
this is nothing to do with the player. So just kind of set that aside for a second, because I hear the argument everybody is telling me on Twitter. Well, what if he's Zach Martin? And then it's not a bad pick. First of all, that's just way overconfidence. You're talking about the 1 percentile outcome here, which obviously is great.
That's not the argument to make here, guys.
No. The Cowboys rely on the draft more than any other team to build their roster. They are not active in free agency. They are not active in trades very often. This is their time to build their roster. This is the most valuable pick that they've had since 2021. And they spent it on an interior offensive lineman. When we thought Brock Hoffman was a average starter, maybe a slightly above average starter. And if you look at like the finances of this, a top 5 guard in terms of salary in the NFL is making what a number 2 receiver is making in the NFL, a number 2 edge rusher, right? So if Tyler Booker turns out to be a top 5 guard, that's the equivalent to like what Devontae Smith is getting paid and Jalen Waddle are getting paid. You and I said all offseason, we thought their biggest need was a number 2 pass catcher. And you had everyone available outside of Ted McMillan. You had some tight ends that we really liked there. I just don't know, for a team that desperately needs to raise their ceiling, if picking a guard at 12 is what they could afford to do at this point.
All right. I don't disagree with all of that by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, as I've said, my biggest issue has been, the process versus the player, right? And the player is over here. I love the player. Super excited about the player. Player's worth it to me. The process, picking him at 12, not great. We should also caveat this. I mean, obviously there's folks watching us live, but for those who are watching it later, we haven't seen the press conference yet, so we don't have any answers if they've.
I mean,
given
I'm sure what they're going to say is he was our highest graded player.
Well, no, that's not what I was looking for. But as far as any information about any potential trades that they had on the table, or opportunities they had to kind of move out, because the truth of the matter is that like. It wasn't great process, but at the same time, they kind of got into a spot that wasn't great. Like, without Tetra McMillan there, they got to where, it was Golden and Igbokwe were still there. But if they viewed Booker as a higher rated player than those, and they still feel like they can get another wide receiver, they still have some other plan, which that's the part we don't know yet. Like,
well, actually, here's the thing. Stephen Jones just admitted at the pre-draft press conference, which is going on right now, that they had significant offers on the table to trade back.
I mean, I guess that's probably where I would have gone. But at this point, it wasn't significant enough to trade back, or they're going with Booker. And like, again, I don't love the way that they handled the situation, especially if they did have offers to trade back. But I'm certainly not going to be upset about the player. I think the chance that they trade back and get, I guess it depends on what the details are specifically to kind of go that down. But I think if we get out of this whole situation and we don't have a solution at wide receiver, I certainly am going to see why people are upset with the kind of way that they played this out, that they played this wrong. But as it stands right now, without knowing what's going on tomorrow or day 3 as well, it's just incomplete information as far as that. But as far as the value of taking a guard at 12, I mean, it's hard to deny that that's not necessarily.
And here's the other thing. Like, I admire the idea that they want to build up their trenches and they want to be strong up front. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that philosophy, right? Like, I 100% agree. But this team needs to learn that you can have a really good offensive line without having 3 first-round picks on it. And I think because they had success with Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Travis Frederick, they feel like that's the only way to have a good offensive line. Whereas you look at some of the teams that are really successful last year. Look at the Eagles. They have a first-round pick in Lane Johnson, who they drafted in 2013. They had 2 second-round picks, Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. They had an unrestricted free agent guard in Mekhi Becton, and they had a 7th-round pick at Jordan Mailata. Like, they weren't spending a bunch of first-round picks. Same with the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't have any first-round picks on their offensive line. At some point, you need your coaches to be able to develop some of these guys and not always feel like you need to spend a top 12, top 20, top 25 pick to have this offensive line.
I think that's fair, but I also think that's not necessarily what they walked into this draft planning to do. But
the problem is when you spend 3 first-round picks on your offensive line in 4 years, it feels like that's kind of the plan, though.
I mean, at one point it certainly could be, but I also think that they got to a spot where, if that was the case, then why would they even consider Tetero, even if he was there at 12? Like, I think that they're picking the players that they view are the best, opportunity to be good players for them. I think part of this, again, too, is that it's not so much that I feel like they have to draft offensive linemen in the first round. I think that what they feel like is that they do a good job when they draft offensive linemen in the first round. And in a draft that's notoriously got a ton of uncertainty, and every single one of these players that we listed all had some kind of wart when it came to being with the Cowboys. They felt the most comfortable with drafting a guy that they could see the clearest picture for. I mean, I may or may not agree with them, but I can at least see that as being the reason, as opposed to feeling. I mean, I just don't feel like they came into this going, we definitely have to draft an interior offensive lineman in the first round. I think that their free agent body language kind of proves that. If anything, like, they've kind of put themselves in a spot, but they probably just couldn't pass on Booker's talent. I don't think people are giving Booker enough credit for how good he is part of the issue here.
I mean, that's maybe part of it, but I just have a hard time wrapping my brain around this team. They have the most expensive quarterback in the NFL. They have the second highest paid receiver in the NFL. They're going to have the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. One of the things that we were saying throughout the draft process is they've got to get players at money 5 positions on cheap contracts if they're going to make this work. You're not doing that at guard at all.
You got to get a good player.
Of course you do.
That's more important. It's not a guarantee that all those guys were going to be in here and come and be good players. I think
that's why but there's not a guarantee that Booker's going to be a good player right away either.
Not. But I'm saying that this is the guy that I think they felt like had the best chance to be, felt like was a solid hit, was a solid pick. I think, look, we talked about the issues with Golden. It's like he doesn't have a ton of experience. I mean, frankly, like everyone talks about how he doesn't have that he doesn't necessarily have enough experience to feel comfortable that that he's going to be a sure thing going in. I think Burden has the Burden issues that we talked about. I think Tyler Warren was my favorite player in this draft. I was praying that the Cowboys take Tyler Warren, but I'm the first to admit that Tyler Warren was not a great fit for what the Cowboys are trying to do. Not a great fit for resource allocation because they already have a bunch of tight ends. So I agree that it's not like the best use of resources, but I also think that the Cowboys were dealt a pretty crappy hand. And if trade back was an option, look, I cannot defend that. Like they probably should have thought about trading back depending on what the deal is, unless they felt like they're taking a bath. But at this point, they felt like he was a lot surer thing than trading whatever the trade back option was, and then who they could have gotten at 25 or 21 or whatever the spot they would have traded back to.
All right, let's talk about day 2 and how the Cowboys can save this draft. Let's talk about some of the best players available and potential targets for the Cowboys in round 2. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. There's so many features on FanDuel I absolutely love. I love betting on my favorite team, the Lakers, or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Landon, let's talk about day 2 because the Cowboys have a pick here at number 44. A lot of talented players available. Over on Twitter, I posted the top available players by the consensus board. I'll read down the list for you. It's Will Johnson, Mike Green, Shedeur Sanders, Luther Burden, Nick Imawari, the safety from South Carolina, Donovan Izuruku, Trey Amos, a corner that I love a lot, Mason Taylor, Travion Henderson, Carson Schlesinger, Jaden Higgins, Siobhan Revell. If you had to pick right now, what do you think Dallas is going to do with this next selection?
I mean, I would, if I had to pick now, I think he's going to be a wide receiver. I mean, if Burden's there, that'd be amazing. I think. How would you feel if Burden was there? Would you feel a little bit better about the situation?
I just pretend in my brain that
that's
Burden
right,
was
exactly.
the 12th pick,
but
I've got
him, right?
my doubts. I've got my doubts that Dallas likes Burden, and I think Burden ends up going to the Titans from just kind of whispers at pick 35.
Yeah, I mean, I listen. I think that 44 is not a pick I'm worried about, just because I think there's going to be a ton of really great players there. It already seems like it, right? Just based on the way the end of this draft fell. So if you can't get a wide receiver, there might be other ways to do this, right? Like trading for a wide receiver, even trading your third, maybe even a late round pick for a wide receiver. So there are still other options that maybe we don't even know yet, So you might
Here's my prediction, by the way.
Go ahead.
I think they're going with a defensive player here at pick 44. And the reason why is poor Matt Eberflus, new defensive coordinator. They've hardly done anything on that side of the ball. They've got a major cornerback question, and there's still some guys available. I don't think it's Will Johnson for them, but the fact that Trey Amos and Siobhan Revell are still available, that would be my selection or my pick. I've also heard they like Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle from Toledo, a little bit. If you want me to lose my mind, that's an easy way to do that. But I would assume defensive line, corner, I think it was Todd Archer said that Dallas likes Donovan Izaruku, the edge rusher from Boston College. I would like that pick a lot. I think it's going to be defense here.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, just I think, like I said, I think there's probably a lot of different ways to kind of deal with this, and I'm sure they've had contingency plans for. Because look, if they knew that Tet was the only guy that they wanted at 12, and they were probably going to go another direction, I'm sure they've been asking around about trade offers for a potential swap pick or something like that. So we'll see how that all works out. And for the most part, it did seem like all the whispers we've been hearing is that they would be doing something on defense in the second round. So that certainly makes sense. The question just becomes, like we've talked about at some of these other draft sequencing conversations, like how do you fit all the rest of the stuff in when you go a different route other than wide receiver or defensive line in the first round. So they may need to get creative here. They may need to trade around and see if they can get some extra picks, or we'll see if there's like a player swap going. So there's still lots of stuff that they can do left. I'm sure they have some contingency plans for some of this.
Doesn't it feel like we're getting to the point where I'm really concerned about the wide receiver 2 position, right? And if you don't get that guy at 44, and frankly, I have 3 names that I like at that spot. You tell me if you have different. I like Luther Burden, who I don't think is going to be an option. I like Kyle Williams quite a bit, and I like Jalen Knoll. Those are my 3. But if it's not one of those 3, I almost would think you have to make some sort of trade to go get somebody, because you can't go into the season with Jalen Tolbert and Jonathan Mingo and Ryan Flournoy and Kevontae Turpin as your other pass catchers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds right to me. Is that and we've been hearing that they've been working on deals for trades. After this last press conference, not this one that's going on right now, but the pre draft press conference. So I wouldn't be shocked if they had a couple of ideas of what they could do if they get out of the next. I mean, really, I think this is something we need to revisit tomorrow. Like, because at tomorrow, if they get out of tomorrow without a wide receiver, either through draft pick or through trade, then we need to really start examining what their options are, because I still think that they have a window here to get somebody that can improve the room in that second spot. But yeah, that window is closing quickly.
What about the running back position? Now, one of the things that's interesting, Travion Henderson still available. Yeah. Quinton Judkins still available. Caleb Johnson still available. Do you think they wait here?
Well, it feels like the NFL is kind of right. That's stretched out a lot more than we thought it did. Even Hampton, I think, kind of went a little bit later than I expected him to. Right. So yeah, I think at this point you probably are thinking about running back as your third round pick, or maybe you go defense second round and then wide receiver third round, and then you wait completely for day 3 picks for running back, depending on how that falls. I still would be shocked if the Cowboys didn't somehow recoup a 4th pick here at some point, maybe with a future pick or something like that. Just because I do think that would be a really good spot for a running back, to be honest, even if you wanted to double dip potentially.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting day too to see what the Cowboys do. They have needs at some pretty big spots: cornerback, wide receiver, running back. I don't think they're going to be able to address all 3 on day 2. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some kind of trade news. There's been some rumblings about maybe Breece Hall, who's available via trade. Rashad White, a running back in Tampa Bay. Wouldn't be shocked to see maybe they try to flip one of their day 3 picks for something like that.
Maybe that's it. Like, I mean, honestly, all you need to do is kind of knock down one of these positions with a late round pick for a vet, and then it just gives you a little bit more breathing room. So yeah, it doesn't even necessarily need to be the wide receiver. It could be the running back that you're flipping a 5th round pick for Breece Hall or something, and then trying to use your 2nd and 3rd pick on defense and wide receiver.
Yeah. All right. That is it for today's show. I'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcast. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. I'd like to thank you for checking out the show. We'll see you right back here on Friday night.